Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our summer webinar series. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm the marketing lead here at Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, and I'm so excited to be joined today by two special guests for part 3 of our summer webinars. Today's all about getting ready to go back to school, even though I realize some kids may already be back in school, but where I grew up, we didn't go back until September. So we still got a little bit of time here. But nonetheless, I am joined today by Alan and April Presswood. So they are the parents of 2 children, Jake and Emma. Their son Jake was burned in a fire pit accident at 6 years old, which they witnessed. They both are trained Phoenix SOAR peer supporters, and April is on the board of Victim to Victor, which is a local burn support group in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Jake was treated by the compassionate staff and doctors at the Atrium Wake Forest Baptist in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Jake's accident changed their lives in many ways, but post-accident, Jake is thriving and is obsessed with baseball. He currently plays on a little league team and recently completed a baseball camp at Davidson College. His sister, Emma, is an avid Carolina Tar Heels fan and enjoys playing basketball and volleyball at her middle school. Alan is an assistant Little League baseball coach and electrical engineer by trade, and April is a financial manager by trade and enjoys volunteering at their church and school. They live with a golden retriever named Lulu who has helped in their healing. They also have now decided to dedicate their time volunteering in the burn community and when needed on the burn unit at Wake Forest. A quote from them is, "We knew it was important for both of our children to see that life does not stop after an accident. You move forward and thrive. It makes you a stronger person and family in life." So thank you so much, Alan and April, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And just a reminder too, before we kind of start jumping into some questions, that we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if you have questions for Alan and April, leave them in the comments. We'll definitely get to them. And even if you're watching this later and didn't catch us live, you can still leave those comments and questions below, and we'll make sure we follow up with you. So I know I read a little bit in the bio about, Jake's accident, but maybe we can just kind of start there and you can talk a little bit more about his injury and his healing journey since then.
Okay, sure. April 22nd, 2022, at 7:56 p.m., our world changed. It was a cool spring night. We did the same thing we always do. We were out in the backyard, running around, chasing the dog. We had a fire going in the fire pit. Jake got in a chair and tipped it backwards. It caught the edge of that fire pit, and it dumped the entire contents onto his face, arms, chest, his whole upper torso. April was probably 10 feet away. I was probably 15 feet away. As soon as I heard that awful scream, I turned and took one step towards Jake, and I saw April was already in midair, jumping over the dog, diving on her knees to pull Jake out of the fire. I turned back around. I happened to have the hose at my feet. I picked up the hose and squirted them both off. So Jake was probably in the fire for a second, maybe. Scooped him up, I rushed him to the ER. April waited here for her parents to come and sit with Emma, and she joined me at the ER probably 30 minutes later. The transport team came in shortly thereafter and told us that they would be transporting us to Wake Forest Baptist because Charlotte could not treat an injury as significant as Jake's.
Mm-hmm.
April rode in the ambulance. I rode behind in the car at 2 a.m. that Saturday morning up to Wake, and they kind of took over from there. Jake received 20% second and third degree burns again, mostly to his face and arms and neck, and some on his leg.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the hospital for probably a week and a half while they treated Jake. The staff there was wonderful. Went back a few weeks later for skin graft surgery. They took skin from Jake's upper thigh and did skin grafts on his face, his arms, his neck, his leg. Fast forward a few weeks after skin graft surgery, a few months, I guess, actually, Jake received steroid injections and laser treatments. He had 3 different rounds of those treatments that kind of help with the itching. So dozens of trips back and forth to Wake, 2.5 years later, and that kind of brings us to today.
And thanks for sharing all that with us. So I know you mentioned, obviously, he was in the hospital initially and had to go back for more surgeries. That's probably during, summer and going back into the fall. So, we're talking all about going back to school today. So kind of what was that transition like for Jake? Being, I guess, out of school initially for his injury and then going back probably that next fall or later that year.
Right. Yeah. So Jake was in kindergarten when this happened. And like we said, it was in April. So he only had a few weeks left. So he did finish from home. We did, coordinate with the teachers and the staff at the school and got his work home. So he did have that benefit. But we also thought it was important for him to see his classmates and his classmates to see him. So before they got out of school, we went up to the school and let him kind of see his classmates as they walked in from recess. So it was a good time to be able to make that connection, for him to see them and them to see him and say, oh, he's okay. He's still got some healing to do, but he was okay. So, like many people think when you leave the hospital that the worst part's over, and, that's just not true at all. It was tough coming home. We wanted to be home, but we were nervous, to leave the hospital because it's a big deal to do all the bandage changes. But the staff at Wake was wonderful. They made sure we were equipped. They made sure that we did those bandage changes a couple of times before we left the hospital. So we were comfortable coming home to be able to do it. To give us the confidence that we can do this. Not saying it was easy, because it sure was not easy. That was probably the most difficult thing as a parent, was to do those bandage changes and to know that you're just putting so much pain onto your little boy. But of course, it got easier as time progressed. So, like I said, Jake did get to finish his schoolwork at home.
We had our teachers were like, and our school, they've been like family. And so he was able to, his teachers got bags together, and which was so awesome, so he could finish at his pace. And then we really had the whole, pretty much most of the school made him cards, get well cards. And so we figured a way real quick when he came home from the hospital. And, you were burned as a child, and I'm sure that you remember how painful those bandage changes were. And so Alan and I had taped all of his classmates and his teachers and the staff's cards all around. So when we would do the bandage changes, and how painful those were, and he would get upset when you would have to do those, we would say, oh, well, look at Miss Jody's card, look at Colton's card, or look at one of his friends' card, and it would redirect his attention. And really that helped so much. Distract, exactly. And that helped him so much. And those cards still mean, they will always mean so much to me, because I know how it got him through such a dark time and, that healing period. but like Alan said, his accident happened April the 22nd, and we had about a month of school left. So he finished school, and I think went back for his skin graft surgery. And then summer came, which was tough because we also have a swimming pool, and him and Emma are used to being outside, and he could not be outside. So that was a difficult part. But yeah.
Definitely. Well, I love the cards and just having, if a parent's listening and maybe their child's getting ready to go back to school or an injury happens during the school year, I love the idea of, getting cards together and even just getting, your child, like you said, like you went back to school and they could come in from recess and see him and, just easing that transition for both the other kids and then also for your son, of course. And I know we may have some, school staff, whether it's teachers or aides listening in today too. Do you have any advice or tips that you would want them to know if they're helping, a child survivor come back to school?
The teachers, we have I would say a close knit community, and every year has been a little bit different, and they as Jake has healed, the first year everyone was very protective of him, classmates, teachers, and it was so appreciative, and that has slowly, everyone has slowly, how do you say, released, the overprotection, and it's been nice. It's been helpful for him because it's given him more confidence. And so he doesn't feel like, he has to be in such a small bubble, live his life in such a small bubble. But for teachers, I mean, I would just say, treat them just as you would any other student. Of course, when they go on the playground, they have to have extra protection. Their sleeves and hats, and for the critical times. Jake had a lot of damage on his arms, and his face and his neck, which is, the first 2 years we've been very vigilant in keeping protective and covered. But he went to a baseball camp this summer, and I put his sleeves on him, and he noticed that all the other little boys didn't have sleeves, and he said, "Mom, I don't think I want to wear the sleeves." And I said, "Okay, son, we'll just put you double sunscreen on." And I want him now to have the control of, doing things. I don't want to keep him in a bubble. I want him to live life fully and not feel like that this accident defines the rest of his life.
Another thing that April did was she got the book, Sarah Steps. So when Jake started school,
that was awesome.
That next summer, or after the summer, that next school year, when he started into first grade, April got that book, Sarah Steps, to be able to read to the class and to go through, this a little talk of Jake's accident, because it was a new school year. It was a new teacher that wasn't aware or wasn't, there when this happened. And there's some new students and parents that aren't aware of his accident. So it kind of helped, get that conversation going and kind of, like she said, explain the differences and why Jake's wearing a hat and sleeves and sunscreen at recess and none of the other kids are. And so that was something that someone at a staff or a head of school might want to think about, to be able to
Mm-hmm.
help that transition a little bit easier.
And some teachers may choose not to read it to the class, but it's definitely a helpful resource for the teacher to understand what this child's went through. And and I was thinking the other day, wow, this, what would be cool is to also, it'd be cool to have like one for like a middle school, because I'm sure middle school age and a high school.
Mm-hmm.
But it is I was so appreciative when I found that resource, the Phoenix ad, because the little girl had the exact same spot that the burn that Jake had.
No, that's awesome. And I made sure we had a link to that too. Plus, Sarah Steps is also now available in Spanish if you're listening. And
That's great.
So, yeah, I love it. And I wanted to pull up this comment too we got on Facebook. Shriners, I'm a Shriners kid, so I got to give a shout out to them too. Their family services and child life support has been amazing. They flew to our town and did workshops at the school. Years later, they flew her public school and presented a PowerPoint, written classroom workshops, and an doll wearing garments and a mask. The support was amazing. So just some other, whether it's the book or even having a burn care team member come into the school, things like that. I think you're bringing up a good point of kind of have to have that balance between, like, you don't want to be overprotective, especially for too long, but also you want to make sure that your child's feeling supported and getting the proper healing and care that they need. So definitely a balance there. And different ages will definitely have different experiences, like you mentioned, with middle school and teenage years.
Right. And I know some hospitals have staff, like you said, that will do school reentries and services to be able to go and talk to staff and say, hey, we got somebody that was in an accident. Here's what they might need. They might need extra time doing assignments, or, if a child had their hands burned really bad or something and had trouble writing, or, just physical limitations from the injury, to be able to help explain to maybe a little bit better than sometimes even a parent could explain to the staff, to be able to see what's coming down the road.
Definitely. And maybe you both had different experiences, but what was it like from both of your perspectives having Jake kind of go back to school? Was that, a scary thought where I just feel like I would want to be overbearing if I was a parent in that situation? So what was that like for the both of you?
Yeah, his teachers, bless his teachers, all of them, because I'm overprotective even before this accident of children. And when you have something like this happen, and I mean, probably forever now, I will always be on guard, and I'm sure as time progresses, it will get better. And it has gotten better. We had teachers that were very good at communicating. Like midday, he's doing great. A short text, and that meant the world to me during that time. I mean, I just could not explain how that first year was such a critical year, and a lot of things, when Jake was first in the hospital and you're trying to get through surgeries and trying to get through, that week and a half that he was in the hospital, you're just trying to get through the actual
hour to
hour.
Yep.
So it wasn't until probably, I would say, 9 months until Alan and I got home, or Alan and I actually started processing and everything hit us, and so we had met at a burn survivor support baseball game, a couple. The gentleman was a burn survivor, and he was in a school fire in 1957, and his wife and him were a crucial part of Alan and I in the very beginning, You
Mm-hmm.
know, they talked to us and told us this is not going to be an easy process getting through, but be there for each other when, you know, and oh, that just helped us so much. Like, it has helped us in the past 2 years, you know, 2.5+ years.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm glad you got that support. I mean, we, as you know now, as Phoenix peer supporters too, that the power of peer support is truly like undeniable. And that goes beyond just, you know, the survivor, but the whole family and caregivers and siblings and things like that. So that's great. You got connected so early.
Yeah, because I mean, you have a lot of family and friends that love you, but they don't understand the emotional ups and downs,
Roller coaster.
the roller coaster that goes with
A burn injury.
a burn injury. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I know I mentioned this in your bio, and I actually got a question from a parent who couldn't join us live. So she sent me her question in, but she was curious, and if you're comfortable with sharing a little bit about Emma's experience, Jake's sister, just, you know, what was her experience like, maybe as it relates to school too, but just what was she going through? How did she talk to her friends about it? You know, we just mentioned how the burn affects the whole family. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit too about just her experience through this.
Yeah. Well, you know, when the accident happened, the whole world stops. And of course that happened with us. You know, everything's put on hold and all the attention is on that injury. So it is a difficult time, I think, for our siblings to, you know, kind of fall in the shadows for a little bit, especially early on, you know, when you're like, even though we were home, you're still hour to hour getting through the day. So, you know, we always encouraged her to still do what she likes to do. Just like her playing volleyball and basketball and going to basketball camps. So we always tried to encourage that with her. We tried to encourage her to have her friends over. You know, yes, Jake's injured, but you can still have a sleepover. And I think it helped both of them, really. It helped Emma, and, you know, life's going on and we're okay. But it also helped Jake too, that
He loved it.
It's, you know, it's that sense of normalcy that helps, I think, siblings. So if your world stops at that accident, but if you keep it there, it's even going to be harder and harder for those siblings because they don't know what to do because they're just in the background.
Yep.
So we tried to spend more time with her one-on-one. We tried to, you know, have little dates where we would take her just to get ice cream or take her for a walk with the dog instead of all of us going as a family. Just, you know, we would take just Emma or take her out to her favorite, you know, restaurant or wherever to kind of help with that transition. So spending extra one-on-one time with her, whether it's going somewhere or just sitting down watching TV with her alone and making sure she's getting that time, because, you know, it was tough on her. It's tough for a sibling to. They're scared too. You know, she was in the backyard with us. She saw the whole thing, so she has the same emotions that we have as parents, in the sense of being scared and not knowing what the future holds, and so trying to
reassuring her that this happened. It's okay. He's fine now, and we're gonna move past it. We have the resources, we have the support, and just making just the confidence, instilling in confidence that everything's going to be okay. You know,
accidents happen. It's no one's fault. You know, and we do include, of course, her in all the burn survivor activities that we do, the support groups that we go to, and the different events and, you know, get-togethers, and make sure that she's around and plugged in with us as well, and gets to hear some of the other stories and know that, you know, hey, you're not alone. There's other people going through this same process. Everybody's story is a little different, but you all have that common connection. So
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we also try to tell her that, you know, you're Emma. You're a beautiful, young, strong, resilient little girl. You're not the sister of a burn survivor. You're Emma. And
Mm-hmm.
Jake's you know, the same thing. He's a smart, sweet, young, resilient little boy, and they got burned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We couldn't be more
Yep.
proud of both of them.
I love that advice. And I just want to reiterate too, just kind of creating that sense of normalcy for the entire family. I'm sure that helped both of you too. Just, you know, trying to get back to normal, which can be so difficult. But, you know, the accident happens, a burn injury happens. But like you said, you can't just stay in that moment. You have to get back to living and thriving again. So I think that's really great advice.
It takes time.
Oh, for sure. It's not a quick, easy road, as we all know, but kind of keeping that, I think, is like a reminder to everyone, you know, that, you know, you can't just live in that moment forever.
Yeah. And you know, one thing that I think that some people do not realize that for burn survivors is, even though there are scars, some scars heal up, the emotional trauma is forever.
Lasts forever. That's
Lasts forever.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's a constant and will always be a constant thing that you have to work on and work with.
There's always triggers, yeah.
And that's like when we went to World Burn Congress, it was awesome to see, and it was so wonderful for our kids to see, like, other families, strong people standing up and you know, telling their stories of survival, and just seeing so many strong people. You know, they came away from that, and I think that, you know, Emma's 11, and I think of all of her years, that has impacted her positively the most of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think I shared this with the both of you when we first connected too. But for me, growing up, just seeing other burn survivors, even though I did have some my own age, but seeing the adults and like older, like teenagers, just thriving and like living a normal life and having fun, for me as a kid was like so life changing. Just knowing, oh, like they're doing fine. Why can't I also just be fine and happy? You know what I mean? So, going back to peer support, so powerful, but even just being around and seeing other survivors surviving and thriving can be life changing for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I know we are coming up here on time, but I just wanted to see if before we close out, if there's like maybe like one piece of advice you'd want other parents and caregivers to know. Especially, maybe we'll do one piece of advice in general we can do, but then also one for preparing, you know, your kids to go back to school.
Mine would be, do not suffer in silence. You know, there's a community, a local community, and, you know, a national community. You know, you guys have tons of resources that we were pointed to that helped us tremendously. Our local community support group that we meet with, you know, it's so nice to meet with them. Sometimes we're having a bad week, we get to see them. It was just this past weekend, we all got together, or some of us got together and went to a hockey game together, and it's so nice. So do not suffer in silence. There's people that love you and that have the same feelings that you do and want to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my piece of advice.
Yeah. One I would give to parents is something one of our doctors told us is, you know, be positive and hopeful. Kids feed off of your energy. So this is going to be as big a deal as you make it. And yes, it was a big deal, but try to have that positivity, and it does help your child a lot.
For sure.
You don't want to minimize the accident, of course, at all. But having that positive attitude and can be a very helpful when your child's looking up at you to read your cues. So, and then like April said, just get plugged in. Plugged in. There's so many resources, like she said, that y'all have, and then the locals, that it's just telling your story is so empowering and giving you the confidence, like you said, to be able to know that, hey, it's going to be okay. I can have a normal life. Getting plugged in was probably the biggest thing that's helped us and continues to help us.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'll just plug quick too, with Phoenix Society, we do have a virtual support group. Obviously get connected with your local burn center. I know that's not always possible for everyone. It's great when it is, but if you aren't close to your burn center and not sure where to start, we're happy to have you virtually at ours as well. And, or we can help you find someone locally. I'm always amazed people, and maybe you guys can relate to this too. Like you don't hear a lot about the burn survivor community until you're a part of it. And then you realize how truly big and awesome we are when you are a part of it. But you often don't even know, but there's probably a survivor family near you, even if you're not connected now.
I've said it before many times. This is not a community that we ever thought we would be a part of. Like you said, had no idea there was a burn community. But now that we are a part of it, would not change it for the world. It's been the most positive, wonderful thing in our life. And like you said, one of our local burn survivors is like 3 miles down the road. 5 miles down the road is crazy.
Yep. That's awesome. And yeah, you would have never known. How funny.
Yeah, and now they're like family. So it's been a wonderful experience in such a tragedy. Still wonderful.
Rachel, let me ask you a question. As a child burn survivor, do you have any advice for Alan and I in the future? I know you had spoken about middle school being the more difficult transition from elementary for you. Do you have any advice going forward?
Yeah. Well, like I had a similar experience, my elementary school. So I was burned before I was ever in school. But I had a very close-knit community too. So, although I was making friends in kindergarten that had never, met me or knew about my burn injury, just the community and the parents. And I just felt like everyone. My sister was older than me, so that like people already knew, I guess. I don't know. That close-knit was so nice. But then, going to middle school was a really big hurdle for me because, you get combined with so many new kids. And let's be honest, young preteens and even teenagers, they're not the nicest about being different or having something look different. So that was a struggle. But I think, kind of what you're already doing now and just creating that normalcy, giving Jake that confidence, or any parent who's listening, giving your child that confidence that, this doesn't define you and you can still go out and go do things like go to baseball camp and not wear your sleeves, and that's okay. And that's actually amazing that he's like, no, I want to show them off in a sense. So I think just supporting them, I don't know what I would have rather have known different, or if there's anything I could have changed going into middle school. I think, any child, burn survivor or not, that's kind of a sucky period for a little until you like find your friends and get in the groove. So I think just being there for them and like checking in with them, but also, like you said, I know I'm not giving you a great, clear answer, but I think it's all about balance, like giving them the confidence, checking in with them, being supportive, but also, letting them go through a little of those hurdles on their own. Because I think in the end, that ultimately helped me get more confidence, is that I did overcome that on my own. So No great clear advice from me today, but I mean, I just knowing that, middle school may be a little bit harder. But everything's different now too with social media. So who knows? You probably already know all your friends going into middle school these days.
I mean, he's only 8, but
Yeah.
That's what's up.
I do think it's really great that, and I know this isn't for everyone, but that Emma is older. And I think just kind of knowing, especially in high school too, just knowing like my older sister's around or she's been here before, I think could help. Just kind of having like, your friends. But yeah, sorry. No great clear advice, but
no,
what you're doing now is working well. So I'm sure you guys will handle
thank
it smoothly.
you. All right.
Well, thank you, both Alan and April, for joining me today. Is there any other questions for me or any other comments or tips you want to share before we close out?
I can't think of any.
No, we just want to thank you for having us on to share our story, and just thank you and the whole Phoenix Society for giving a platform to survivors to be able to share their story and learn and grow and join this community. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
It's nice
of
to be a
course.
part of your family.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We're happy to have you guys on. And like I said, if anyone's listening later and has questions for Alan and April, or even want to get connected through Phoenix Store, comment below, reach out to Phoenix Society, and we'll make sure you all get connected and your answers to your questions. So yeah, thanks again, Alan and April, and good luck to all of the kids and parents preparing to go back to school. One thing I'm happy about that I don't have to do anymore.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.